Everyone talks about Job's patience. It's almost his brand. If someone handles a difficult situation without yelling, someone nearby will eventually say, "Wow, the patience of Job." But that's the simplified version, and this is where the story gets uncomfortable. Job starts at the top, wealthy, respected, deeply religious, large family, strong reputation. In ancient terms, he's the complete success package. Livestock everywhere, servants working, house full of children, stability in every direction. He's introduced as upright and blameless, the kind of man people point to and say, "See, that's how it's done." Then everything breaks, not slowly, not in chapters, in a single cascade of disasters. Messenger 1, your oxen and donkeys, gone. Messenger 2, your sheep, gone. Messenger 3, your camels, gone. Messenger 4, your children, gone. It reads less like tragedy and more like system failure. And just when it seems like the damage report is complete, his health collapses too. Painful sores, constant discomfort. No medical solution, no explanation. It's not a setback, it's total collapse. Now here's the interesting part. People say Job was patient, but patience doesn't mean calm. When Job hears about his children, he tears his robe, he shaves his head, he falls to the ground. That's not spiritual composure, that's shock. It's like calling someone strong without reading the text they sent at 3 a.m. You see the public posture, you don't see the private spiral. Job's famous line about accepting both good and trouble gets quoted a lot. It's powerful, it's poetic, but that line happens in the middle of emotional wreckage. He isn't glowing with peaceful wisdom. He's absorbing impact after impact, trying to stay upright while everything he built disappears in front of him. Then comes the silence. 7 days. His friends arrive, they sit. They say nothing, no advice, no theology, just silence. Because even they understand something important. This isn't mild discomfort, this is existential collapse. The patience of Job doesn't begin with serenity. It begins with a man who has just lost everything and hasn't fully processed what that even means. And the quiet is heavy, because when he finally speaks again, it won't sound patient at all. Job did not respond with spiritual serenity. There was no soft instrumental music playing in the background, no glowing halo of acceptance, no slow nod of mystical understanding. He tears his robe, he falls to the ground, he weeps. That's not calm, that's shock. The kind of shock where the brain is still trying to calculate what just happened, but the math refuses to work. He's not delivering a motivational speech, he's sitting in dust. And when his health collapses too, when painful sores spread across his skin, the situation shifts from tragic to unbearable. He takes a piece of broken pottery and scrapes himself just to relieve the pain. This is not a wellness retreat. This is survival mode. People later summarize this period as patience, but patience implies emotional smoothness. This isn't smooth. This is raw. He wasn't meditating. He was trying to understand why his entire life just burned down. And the worst part, the losses are catastrophic, yes, but the deeper wound isn't only the destruction, it's the silence. No explanation, no warning, no voice clarifying what's happening. Imagine losing everything and getting zero notification about why. No terms and conditions. No, this is temporary. No, we're working on it. Just silence. His friends arrive and, to their credit, they initially do the right thing. They don't preach. They don't analyze. They sit with him for 7 days. 7? That's not casual sympathy. That's visible devastation. They barely recognize him because the suffering has physically altered him. And still, no answers. It's like losing everything. And the universe puts you on red. That kind of silence does something to a person. It stretches the mind, it magnifies doubt, it turns confusion into pressure. At this stage, Job hasn't exploded yet. But the pressure is building. Because grief that doesn't get processed doesn't disappear. It accumulates. And the version of Job people remember, the composed, enduring symbol, hasn't shown up yet. Right now, he's sitting in pain, in dust, in silence, trying to understand what kind of reality he's living in. And eventually, silence becomes unbearable. And when he finally breaks that silence, it won't be gentle. And then it gets darker. Then Job finally speaks, and it's not inspiring, it's not polished, it's not patient. He curses the day he was born, not metaphorically, not poetically, literally. He wishes the day of his birth would disappear from the calendar. That's not mild frustration, that's existential collapse. The man who gets quoted for endurance is now saying, in essence, "It would have been better if I had never existed." That line rarely makes it into motivational speeches, because it's messy. And this is the part nobody quotes. Job doesn't quietly accept suffering. He questions it, he challenges it, he demands an explanation. He asks why light is given to someone in misery. Why life continues when everything inside feels finished. This isn't rebellion, it's wrestling. And it's loud. His friends, who started strong by saying nothing, now decide to help, which is where things go wrong. They begin explaining. Maybe you sinned. Maybe this is justice. Maybe this is correction. In other words, this must be your fault. It's impressive how quickly sympathy turns into analysis. Everyone becomes a theologian when the disaster isn't theirs. Job doesn't accept their logic. He pushes back. He insists on his integrity. He argues his case. He wants a hearing. He wants clarity. He wants someone to step forward and explain how this makes sense. And notice something important. He doesn't walk away from God. He argues with him. That's different. He's not abandoning belief. He's confronting it. And that confrontation is uncomfortable, because patience is quiet. This is not quiet. This is a man who feels unheard and refuses to pretend he doesn't. The speeches go back and forth. Accusation, defense, theory, counter-argument. It reads less like a devotional and more like a courtroom drama without a judge present. The tension keeps building, because the deeper question isn't just, why is this happening? It's, does any of this make sense? And for chapter after chapter, there's no final answer. Just debate, just pressure, just a man insisting that his suffering deserves explanation. If the story ended here, Job would not be remembered as patient. He would be remembered as furious. But the shift hasn't happened yet, because eventually someone else speaks. And when that voice enters the scene, the entire scale of the conversation changes. This is where most summaries get shallow, because this is the part people rush through. Job asks for explanations, detailed ones, clear ones, preferably with bullet points. He wants to know why the suffering happened, what caused it, what rule was triggered, and then God responds. But not with a spreadsheet, not with a courtroom verdict, not with a tidy paragraph labeled reason. He sends perspective. Job asked for answers. God gave him the size of the universe. Instead of explanation, Job gets questions. Where were you when the foundations of the earth were laid? Who told the sea where to stop? Can you command the morning? Have you walked the depths of the ocean? Do you control the stars? This isn't punishment. It isn't mockery. It isn't a detailed justification. It's scale. The conversation shifts from, why did this happen to me, to, do you understand the structure of reality? Stars, oceans, foundations of the earth, limits of chaos. The scope keeps expanding. And the more it expands, the smaller the argument feels. Not irrelevant, just smaller. It's like demanding full administrative access to a system you can't even see. Job wanted control. He received humility, not humiliation, humility. There's no list of reasons, no behind-the-scenes reveal, no here's the secret plan, just perspective. The universe is bigger than his suffering, not dismissing it, but reframing it. And something shifts. Job stops arguing, not because he got the answer he wanted, but because he realizes the limits of his position inside the system. The breakthrough wasn't information, it was realization. He sees that his demand for explanation assumed a level of control he never had. That doesn't erase the pain, it doesn't rewind the losses, but it changes the posture. The story moves from accusation to awareness, and that changes everything. Job was not patient, he was desperate, and he stayed. That's the part that changes the story. Because when people say the patience of Job, they usually picture emotional stillness. But that's not what happened. Let's recap. Total loss, physical pain, isolation, silence, accusations, confrontation. That's not a peaceful retreat. That's pressure from every direction. He didn't suppress emotion, he tore his robe, he wept, he questioned, he argued, he endured it. There's a difference. Patience sounds passive. This wasn't passive. This was active endurance. He didn't pretend everything was fine. He refused to disappear inside the chaos. Resilience is not the absence of breakdown. It's refusing to disappear during one. That's what Job actually models. Not emotional numbness, not silent compliance, persistence. The story doesn't romanticize suffering. It doesn't present pain as beautiful. It shows someone wrestling with it, without walking away. And that detail matters, because the victory in Job isn't that he never broke. He did. The victory is that he stayed in the conversation. He stayed in the tension. He stayed even when the silence felt unbearable. By the end, restoration comes, health returns, wealth returns, family grows again. But that's not the core lesson. The core lesson happened before the restoration. It happened when he chose not to run. He didn't win because he was tranquil. He won because he didn't run. And that reframes the entire narrative. Job isn't the mascot of calm endurance. He's the example of stubborn persistence in the middle of confusion, which feels a lot more human. And maybe that's why his story still resonates. Because most people don't need advice on how to be serene. They need to know what to do when everything feels unstable. Job's answer wasn't clarity. It was continuation. He continued through doubt, through anger, through unanswered questions. And that makes the story less about perfection and more about perseverance. But here's the bigger twist. Job wasn't the only biblical figure we misunderstood.